What is going on, everybody? This is Rick Adams. I got Jack Farris right beside me, and you're listening to the J&R's Puck House. Folks, there is tons and plenty to talk about. This is outrageous. Brady Tkachuk going to Florida. Breaking news.
What's up, Puck House listeners? Yeah, Rick couldn't have said it better myself. As the Carolina Hurricanes are in the midst of their celebration on Father's Day, we get a big bombshell trade. Brady Tkachuk, U.S. Olympian gold medal. He goes to the Florida Panthers and joins his brother Matthew Tkachuk. I know the city of brotherly love is Pennsylvania, or Philadelphia, right? But, two brothers joining forces down there. I mean, geez, you look at their top nine and it's scary, I'll tell you that. But yeah, what a bombshell of news, Rick. It was Father's Day. I was with the family having some dinner. I see the Elliot Friedman notification come up on my Apple Watch. Brady Tkachuk indeed being traded to the Florida Panthers. I almost dropped my drink. I yell at my dad. I'm like, Dad, I was just like, holy shit, Brady Tkachuk's being traded to the Florida Panthers. I can't believe it. It was pretty funny, but wow, what a move. I think we were texting a little bit while I was running around getting some pastries and stuff for Father's Day. I see the Mackie Samoskevich trade, and once I seen it was just for picks. I was just like, there's no way the Panthers are just loading up on picks. They're not a team that's, trying to load up on picks and rebuild, that's for sure. So I knew they were doing something with the picks. I didn't think it was Tkachuk. I was like, oh, they're getting picks to either get Hellebuck or Larkin. That's where my mind went. But, wow, didn't see the Tkachuk trade coming. But, obviously the biggest news in the NHL right now, and we're going to dive into this. And it's just, I love to see it personally. I mean, I'm a Rangers fan. It would have been cool to see him go to the Rangers or something like that, but those two joining up in Florida, like two brothers playing together, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely, Jack. I think you got to call it just must-watch hockey now. I think that's so far right now due to the offseason moves, right? This is going to be the most anticipated thing I'm going to be waiting for all offseason now, just to watch these guys play. I got to see my team make their moves and acquisitions. Of course, I'll be excited for that, I'm sure. But I don't know. This is going to be something else down in Florida now, right? State of Sunshine. I think that's it, right?
Sunshine State, yeah.
Is that it?
Sunshine State, you're right?
Yeah. So, well, it's going to be good. I think I just don't think they're done. You know what I mean? I don't think they're done yet. And when you think they're added more, I think more is to come. It's $7 million in cap space, somewhere around there. I don't know the exact number, but you just gotta wonder, do they get a guy like Hellebuck? I know you and I were texting back and forth a couple times, maybe talking on the phone about that as well. Bobrovsky's freeing up $10 million. I think, is that where the already $7 million comes from him being off the books, or are they going to be in a bunch of cap room after that, or something when it clears, or?
Yeah, the cap went up. I looked earlier today, Rick. It was about right now they still have about $7 million and change in cap space. But technically they don't have a goalie, so they got to figure out their goaltending. So they don't really have a ton of cap space to play with if they're going to re-sign Bobrovsky. But are they done? No, they need a goalie. I just wonder what goalie they go after. You keep seeing the Hellebuck rumors, so we'll see what happens with that. But they fit Tkachuk in. He's got 2 years on his contract. Multiple first-round picks going back the other way to Ottawa. You read all the news. It's just like it's all over the place. Obviously, Ottawa Senators fans aren't happy, and they're bitter about it. And there's some reporters that are bitter about it because when Tkachuk was asked at the season-ending the media scrum, like when they lost to Carolina, it was like he was basically like, "Oh yeah, I've always been loyal to Ottawa, and it's a distraction, all of this stuff." And what I'll say to that is like, things change, and before you jump down a player's throat there and kind of say, oh, 2 months ago you were saying you wanted to be part of the solution. Things do change, and I'm sure everyone listening has been through that in their career where you think you're going to be with a certain job for a certain amount of time, and things change, and you go somewhere else. So, look, I'm sure he always had it in the back of his mind. He wanted to get back to the United States, and if he was going to go anywhere, going to play with his brother Matthew in Florida. Not just playing with his brother, but let's face it, the Florida Panthers have been to 3 Stanley Cup finals in the past 4 years. The culture there is great. They have a good team. You can't dispute that. Even if you don't like them, they're a good team. They're well built. They've won championships. All of their players are in their core, like in their prime for the most part. It's not even like they're necessarily an old team. I mean, you're getting a healthy Alexander Barkov back this upcoming season. You're getting a healthy Matthew Tkachuk. Now you're adding Brady to that mix. They subtracted nothing off their roster. There's no subtractions from the Panthers roster, just picks. I mean, you subtract Sam Miskevich. Yeah, not to throw dirt on Sam Miskevich. He's a good young player, but I mean, I think to get a pick for him and then move that pick to get Brady Tkachuk, I mean, it just doesn't compare. But yeah, Rick, this is a crazy trade. I didn't think we'd see it this year. We just kept talking about Larkin, Hellebuck. We spoke, I thought if anything, Tkachuk would be next season. I thought, or the end, maybe next summer we'd see him move. That's what I was thinking. But that's the thing. You never know what's going on behind the scenes. And I think Ottawa's GM was like, hey, like maybe we'll get ahead of this now instead of having the distraction in the offseason. And I mean, I don't know. There's rumors that it was a distraction in the locker room because of all the Olympic stuff and the gold medal stuff. It's an awkward thing, and it's not just solely Tkachuk. All these captains in Canadian cities, Austin Matthews dealt with it too in Toronto. These guys won gold medals for the United States. They're American. They come back, and obviously, I'm not saying these Canadian fans are happy that the U.S. won, but they're kind of going after these guys a bit. Let's just call a spade a spade. I mean, we could sit here and pretend that didn't happen, but all you got to do is a little research back to February, March when these guys were being interviewed. I mean, they were being booed. And so I'm sure Tkachuk didn't like that. And these guys, they accomplished something great. And we've said it before on this podcast. Look, it's when you have the control, when you have the hammer, which Brady Tkachuk did, you're going to use it. And I don't see the outrage. I don't understand the outrage of it, because if the roles were reversed and Tkachuk did not have a no-move clause, which he earned in his contract, it was a contractual right of his, like I've said, these general managers would have traded him wherever to get the best asset, the best return. So sometimes the player has the control, sometimes the team has the control, and it's just the way it goes. I guess Brady was honest and said, hey, I'm not going to re-sign long-term in Ottawa. And they got ahead of it. They got a bunch of picks. I don't see the outrage. If I'm an Ottawa Senators fan, sure, I'm not happy. It's your captain. He's a good player. He's young. He's in his prime. I could understand them not being happy, but these things happen. And, hey, it could happen the other way around. I'm sure, what if you had hypothetically speaking, say Canada won the gold medal, and you had a Canadian captain in a United States team, and the United States booed him and, asked him questions and all those types of things, which, quite honestly, I don't think would have happened as much in the United States because Toronto is a big media market. Ottawa's big. In Florida, I don't think they would have done that to a Canadian captain, honestly. Not as much, anyway. But if that were to happen and the Canadian player said, hey, I want to be traded to Toronto, or I want to be traded to Ottawa or Montreal, you'd probably get some American people like talking negatively about it, but I don't think it would be the same outrage that we're seeing, and I know Twitter's not the real world, but you're seeing the outrage on Twitter. You're seeing the outrage on a lot of these media outlets that, not all of them, like there's good reporters out there like Elliot Friedman and Darren Dreger and those guys, but yeah, personally, I don't understand the outrage. If you're a Senators fan, I do understand them being let down. But look, let's see what Ottawa does with all these picks. That's the side for Ottawa. We brought it up in the last podcast. They're going to use these picks for currency. I don't think they're looking at it like the conditional 2030 round pick they got from Florida. I mean, that kid's probably like 15 right now. He's probably playing kickball at recess today. So I don't think that's who they're dependent. They're going to use those picks to go get another player.
Yeah, Jack, that's great. You bring up like the fans not being happy. I wonder if a guy like Timmy Stützle is happy or not. I wonder if he's a little disgruntled. Is he going somewhere? I don't think so. I think they're gonna move those picks for maybe they acquire somebody. I don't know exactly who. I'm reading Jason Robertson maybe linked to them. Who knows? It's just what I'm seeing on Twitter and all that stuff, but. It's going to be an interesting piece what they do at the draft. I mean, I feel like all these moves just shake up like so many things and so many other players' value. We brought up Larkin, not to go all over the place, but like we brought up Larkin in last pod, and we will talk about him now or later on as well. But I wonder how this shakes things up for Dylan Larkin's value and everything like that. Now Brady Tkachuk going to Florida.
Yeah, it's a good point, Rick. I do think it may change something a bit for the Larkin situation, but I do think every situation is unique. So Ottawa had the stomach for it and said, all right, let's just get this over with. I know he's the captain, but maybe they thought it was a distraction, all the trade noise and stuff like that. I don't know. None of us are privy to these conversations, what Brady Tkachuk actually said to Steve Staios, the Ottawa general manager. And, if he said, you know what, just trade me now, or if maybe Ottawa came to him and said, look, like, we're going to try to move you. Where do you want to go? You have a no move clause, like I said, which he earned. So we're not privy to these conversations. Do I think it's going to change stuff for Larkin? It probably will. I would assume it kind of sets a bit of a precedent for, like, if Tkachuk got those types of picks back, maybe that's something similar that Detroit could expect to receive, if not a little less. I'm sure Detroit would rather have a player to replace Larkin plus a pick or something. We know Detroit's trying to get into the playoffs. We'll see where it goes, but like I said, every situation is unique, and they're two different general managers, and everything we read about Steve Yzerman is that he's a grinder and that he's he's not gonna lose a trade. And I do think there's a fine line with that. Like, you got to respect the fact that he's trying to do what's best for the Detroit Red Wings and get get back as much as you can. But at a certain point, you do have to do business, and to to quibble over, I need an extra second, and now you're bringing that into the training camp in September, and now Larkin's disgruntled. It's like, I don't know if that's worth it. I'm sure there's a deal to be made. At the end of the day, Larkin has a no move too, so he's going to somewhat dictate where he wants to go, which he's already said he'd like to go to Florida, Minnesota, Vegas, and I think Elliot Friedman was saying Dallas. It might have been added to that list, but we'll see what happens. It is what it is. Like, I know that sounds simplistic, but these players have some power. They have control. I actually read something interesting. Colby Cohen actually responded to someone that was talking about these players being like spoiled brats and stuff, and he said, well, look at the other flip side of it. Look at he brought up Blake Wheeler in Boston and how he was part of he was drafted there and stuff like that, and they traded him. I don't remember what they traded him for, but Boston went on to win a cup after that. Do you think Blake Wheeler wanted to leave a good situation like that and go to Winnipeg at that time? Probably not, But who had the control then? The team. And that happens more often than you think. Like, guys sign contracts, they get bought out if they have a bad season. They get forced into trades if they don't have the right clauses in their contract. So I'm all for it. These teams, the Ottawa Senators, are going to be around much longer than Brady Tkachuk is going to be a player. The Detroit Red Wings are going to be around much longer than Dylan Larkin's going to be a player. So, look, these guys were with their teams for 8 years. Larkin even longer, but even Tkachuk was with the Senators for 8 years. So, like, the outrage to me is a little bit, like, crazy, because it's like, the guy gave you 8 years. It's not like he spent one season there and was like, all right, get me out of here. This isn't for me. Like, he gave you time, and you made it to the first round of the playoffs 2 years, and, didn't win a series, but it is what it is. I think it's kind of Timmy Stützle's team now.
Yeah, Jack. I don't think Ottawa's done yet. It's as simple as that. I just don't think they're done yet. Maybe they flip these picks and get somebody. I don't know who exactly, but stay tuned. Who's not done yet is the Florida Panthers. Jack, what do you got?
No, I don't think they're done either. We kind of touched on it at the top. You keep talking, so Connor Hellebuck is on the move, apparently, according to some insiders, and Winnipeg's willing to move him. I think he wants a fresh start. Unfortunately for Winnipeg Jets fans, I don't see them really getting better next year. I think they might be heading towards I don't know if about a full rebuild, but maybe a retool. I mean, look, one guy that Rick, just not to be all over the place here, sorry listeners, but Nick Ehlers was a guy that we forgot to bring up in the last pod about how great he was for Carolina, and listeners, you probably are like, these idiots didn't even talk about Nick Ehlers. But yeah, we noticed it, and we like the next day we were texting. I was like, we didn't even bring up Nick Ehlers and how great he was for Carolina and what a great free agent signing that was. But that brings me back to Winnipeg and how they lost Ehlers. Now Hellebuck doesn't want to be there. There's there are some issues in Winnipeg. So that points me to Hellebuck. Like a lot of people are connecting Hellebuck to Florida, how he'd like to go down to he'd like to go play in Florida and like it might be a good fit for him. He likes to fish. It's like a little less attention than the big media market. It goes down. There were two Olympians, the Tkachuks he won a gold medal with. And the other thing too that I thought of too on my own was that Paul Maurice used to coach him in Winnipeg because Maurice was a longtime Winnipeg Jet coach, and now obviously he's the Florida Panthers coach, so that's a good connection there too. I think with Florida is like, do they have enough assets left? Do they have enough cap space? They could probably make the cap work, but do they have enough assets left? That's what I think about. I mean, it's gonna be hard to, they gave up
2034 first rounder.
Yeah. So like it's like how many they gave all these picks away to get Tkachuk, which was an awesome move, but like, do you have enough in the cupboard to give to Winnipeg to make it worth their while? But once again, we're not privy to the inside conversations. We're speculating here, and that's why it's fun. But maybe Hellebuck's saying, I want to move, send me to Florida. Who knows? Maybe we see a return, and I'm sorry for Winnipeg fans, but maybe it's a very low return for Hellebuck. If he's telling, Winnipeg's GM, hey, I only want to go to Florida, his hands are kind of tied. And this is what we talk about, listeners, is like, the players sometimes have the control, and when you're up that echelon of player, you have some control, and it is what it is, and it may suck for the fans of that team, but it goes the other way sometimes. You get a guy that underperforms that doesn't have that clause, they buy him out, they trade him, it's just the way it goes, and if, like I said, if Brady Tkachuk was on a long-term deal and wasn't performing well and didn't have a no move, do you think Ottawa's GM would come to him and say, hey, we have a massive offer from Vancouver, but we're going to send you to Florida because we know you'd like to be there, and we're going to take like way less from, I don't think that would happen. But yeah, I mean, just to stay on the Tkachuk thing, I'm still like digesting that trade. What a trade for Florida. I mean, if you're in the Atlantic Division, you have to be scared of Florida, and you can't even like dispute that. You can't lie. I mean, that team, look at their top 9. They haven't lost anyone off the roster. Their only issue, like I said, is the goalie. So if they could somehow swing getting Hellebuck in there, oh man, without getting anything off the roster, somehow giving up just futures, I don't know. I think it'll be a tough task for Florida to do that, but if they can, that would be something else. But I'll tell you what, man, Brady Tkachuk, I'm a huge fan of his. He's the profile of player that he is. He's in his prime. He's physical. He could score goals. He's tough. He'll fight if he has to. Gets in front of the net. He plays a style like some players just can't. And you talk about some attributes of other players like Jacob Slavin just won the Stanley Cup for Carolina. There's a lot of defensemen that would love to play like Jacob Slavin, and they just can't because he's got that defensive mind, the stick, the IQ is there that other people just don't have, that would like to have, and they don't. McDavid, his skating, like, a lot of guys would like to skate like McDavid, but they just can't. There's a lot of players that may like to play like Tkachuk. They don't have the frame. They don't have the balls, quite frankly, to play like him. So what a fit. What a fit. And you know what? It goes back to Florida doubles down on what they know works. And what they know works is getting guys that could play a little nasty, they could play tough, but they also have skill. These guys aren't just goons that just fight and beat people up. Like, they could do a little bit of everything. They're versatile players, and Brady Tkachuk is a beast, and he's like a unicorn of a player, literally. So, yeah, congrats to Florida Panthers fans because that's some player. I'm excited to watch them. Not so much against my Rangers, but just an incredible pickup for the Florida Panthers. Like, we could talk about it all night, and he's got 2 years left. I would imagine he re-signs there. Why would he want to leave, right? So in a couple of years, I'm sure he'll want to resign, and it's incredible just to watch the stuff on social media. Some of these people talking about tampering and all this stuff, and it's kind of, to me, it's kind of stupid. And I'm no attorney here, but when you talk about tampering, it's like him and his brother talking about how cool it would be to play together in Florida after he gets that treatment in Ottawa. I don't think that's tampering. Tampering would be like Florida's management and executives going behind Ottawa's executives back and trying to negotiate with Brady Tkachuk, which didn't happen. Obviously that didn't happen. So they worked out a deal. I'm sure Ottawa would have liked to get more for Brady Tkachuk than they did. I'm sure they would have liked to get another player that could play, maybe not to the caliber of Tkachuk, but I'm sure they would have liked more. But why would Bill Zito, the GM of Florida, why would he give up more than he has to? And look, Ottawa didn't get nothing back. They got multiple picks. And they're going to use those picks to get somebody. Who that is, I'm still trying to figure out. We're hearing the Jason Robertson rumors. What do you think about the Jason Robertson move, Rick? Like the possibility of a move. My take on it with Robertson, I was thinking about it on the way here, actually. Do you remember when apparently he turned down a deal from Dallas, and it was similar to the Mikko Rantanen deal for like $12 million a year? They offered him something like right under Rantanen, like 11 and change. So if you're turning down almost $12 million in Dallas, what is Ottawa going to have to offer for him to come there?
Yeah, that's very well said. And that's why I was thinking about bringing up Ottawa and saying Robertson. I heard that, read that. It doesn't really make sense for Ottawa to acquire him. I understand if Robertson wants to get paid elsewhere and whatnot and all this stuff, but why would Ottawa also want to get another American-born player and lock him up long term or whatever the case may be? It just doesn't add up. You just had a American-born player leave you, to go play with his brother, but also to go back to an American team and all that stuff. So why it just doesn't add up to me? Why would they want to get involved with that, knowing they could be flat left in 2 years? I don't know. That's just my outlook on it. I think Robertson, I don't know if he's being selfish, I'm not saying he shouldn't, strive for what he wants and all that stuff and get paid. And I don't blame you, but Dallas is such you already have a good core there. I guess you could say maybe he's being selfish. It's all about the money. I don't know. We're not there. Even if we were there, we don't know what he's thinking, right? So, I really don't have much to say on the Robertson situation. Just I think he's being a little bit maybe foolish. I don't know exactly Dallas's cap situation. Maybe this plays a role. Maybe management already told him, hey, listen, we'll try and flip you. I don't know. I don't know exactly.
Yeah, Rick, it's a good point. With Robertson, it's he is American-born, and I don't want any Canadian listeners out there to think that we're throwing dirt on Canada or whatever. It's it's not like that. We're honestly just trying to go based off the facts and my opinion as well. But at the end of the day, Jason Robertson wasn't picked to be on the U.S. Olympic team, which nobody out there could say that was a bad move because the U.S. won gold. So you can't say that was a bad move. I think Billy Guerin. I think Billy Guerin did a terrific job picking players, the role players like JT Miller, Vincent Trocheck, all these guys that killed penalties and stuff. And I think they did a good job. But to stay on track with Robertson, maybe Robertson is feeling a bit slighted and hey, the U.S. didn't pick me for the Olympic team. Maybe I could go to Ottawa and be the guy. Tkachuk, the Olympian, leaves, doesn't want to be there. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know Robertson. Maybe he's fine, likes Canada and wants to live there. And I just think with the financials of it, they're going to have to pay him a lot of money for him to go there. So that is a factor. And I just think, like I said, we're talking facts. These American players, they're leaving for a reason. And I just think it has a lot to do with saying the quiet part out loud, I guess. The geopolitical nature of Canada versus U.S. was on display at the Four Nations and at the Olympics. And you could say what you want, but that's just the way it is and the way it goes. And the American players want to be in America. These guys that have most of them. I mean, Austin Matthews hasn't come out and said that, but look, he got ripped apart in the media because he shook Donald Trump's hand at the White House. And we're not here to talk about politics and stuff, but at the end of the day, going to the White House is an honor, no matter who you support. Whether it's Barack Obama or Joe Biden or George Bush or Donald Trump, it doesn't matter. So these guys went and. You could be upset with it, but if you're going to sit there and complain about it and ask the guy the same question 10 times and say he's a traitor and this and that and boo him, what do you expect? And on top of that, he's not even in the country he was born in. Look, could this have gone the other way? Maybe. I don't know. Like, if Canada won and all these Canadian guys were like, oh, we should try to all play in Montreal because look how great Montreal is doing. So I think it'd be disingenuous to not pretend that's a factor, the whole geopolitical issues with, U.S. and Canada and just the tax implications and just there's a lot of differences between U.S. and Canada. And I'm not here to, sit here and debate which ones are right and wrong. And I'm sure there's great things about Canada that, would be good here in the U.S. and vice versa. There's good things about the U.S. that Canada doesn't have. So to stay on track with Robertson, it's like maybe he's okay with being in Canada, being the guy. Maybe he feels he's got a chip on his shoulder because he wasn't chosen for the Olympics and he wants to just make as much money as possible. So he's willing to go to Ottawa and get paid $14 million and be the top guy. That could be possible. What's Ottawa going to give up? Picks, and I would imagine something else. Dallas wants to compete. Dallas isn't looking to rebuild. So, interesting topic.
It's got me stumped.
Yeah, it does have me stumped because I'm trying to think of other players that maybe need a change of scenery that Ottawa could go and trade for. They could give up these picks for. If we're thinking of guys other than Robertson. I mean, is there a Canadian player on a U.S. team that maybe wants a change of scenery that Ottawa could give up picks for?
Yeah, maybe you see a deal with like them and Duchesne. Maybe Duchesne gets sent there. Who knows? I'm just speculating here, folks. Just right off the top of my head. Talking about McTavish. Maybe maybe McTavish. There you go. We could dive into him. I was hearing about that as well, McTavish. I want to bring up the Ducks. I thought the Ducks were like on the come up here, and then now they traded McTavish. I don't even know what the deal is with that. Like that, you're Mr. Cap situation. You're like the Puckpedia guy. Like you got it all figured out. Jack does his homework, folks. I've been slacking, but no, seriously, I don't understand. Has he requested a trade? Like, what's the? I don't get the whole lowdown with him wanting out or what it may be exactly, but I think if I'm Anaheim, right? Let's just say if Rick was the GM now, why wouldn't you try your hardest to keep a guy like that, especially the little run you had into the playoffs with that young core? I know there's some older guys. You got Kreider there, and I just and Killorn, but like I don't know. Just they're gonna let Carlson go. I don't think Carlson's staying there, John Carlson. So I don't get what happened. Jack, tell us what happened.
Well, listen, the Ducks are on the come up, and they proved it last season when they made the playoffs and they beat the Edmonton Oilers in the first round, right? John Carlson was shocked by that trade. Apparently, like he's John Carlson's from New Jersey, I believe, like South Jersey. Longtime Washington Capital, obviously won a cup with them. So I don't think he was so keen on moving himself and his family, who I assume he has kids in school and whatnot, across the country to Anaheim. But he went on a run with Anaheim there. I heard he's not re-signing. He's signing somewhere in the Northeast. But, when it comes to McTavish, I think if you remember last season, it kind of dragged on that contract dispute, and he finally signed a 6-year deal with them. He's got 5 years left at $7 million. He's a Canadian kid. I just think you have Leo Carlson, who I think we all knew was good, but then he really has proved how amazing he is. I think he's a lot better than people even anticipated. So you have that, like, I just think maybe they're going to have to pay Carlson. I mean, you got McTavish on the third line center. Maybe they're kind of like, hey, like, we need to pay other guys. And what do they get for McTavish? I don't know. They do have some older forwards. So, yeah, Anaheim is an interesting team. They have a nice blue line. You got Jackson Lacombe. The kid Zellweger looked pretty solid. He got in some playoff games. So I don't know. Maybe they trade McTavish, get a defenseman. But that's just one example. I mean, there are some, Jordan Kyrou in St. Louis. Like, could he be traded? He's fallen out of favor in St. Louis. I believe Kyrou's Canadian. Maybe he would like to play in Ottawa. Maybe they could give up some picks to St. Louis for Kyrou. he's not a direct Brady Tkachuk replacement by any means, but, you know, you could get some scoring punch from him. So, yeah, that's kind of what we have to look at. These teams that, you know, have a player that wants a change of scenery that might be a good fit in Ottawa. That's kind of where it's kind of where my mind goes with that. And yeah, Rick, it's been a crazy offseason already, and I have a feeling we're going to see more trades this week, whether it's Hellebuck or Larkin or maybe something out of left field where we're not even thinking about it right now. But I don't know. Do you have anyone in mind that maybe is like more of a left field option, not a Dylan Larkin or someone that's like, you know, prominent, talked about in the media, like someone you could think of besides McTavish? We spoke about him already, like that needs to change the scenery. Maybe he could go to Ottawa, or maybe we're just, you know, we're not even thinking of it and he's going to get traded.
Well, Jack, I'm glad you asked. I briefly brought him up in the other pod, and not to cherry pick off other pods that I've you know, another episode we've done, but and I only say this in case Hellebuck does leave, but if Hellebuck does leave Winnipeg, what does this mean for Kyle Connor? Seriously, I want to bring that up because, folks, I mean, when you lose a goalie like Hellebuck, I mean, I would only think that your top guy is going to be a little like, what the hell's going on? You know, so maybe, you know, if that happens, maybe they're okay with moving him. And I don't know if this whole Hellebuck to Florida is real, right? And they can maneuver this, whatever Florida decides to, you know, cook up and send off. I would only think that Kyle Connor would want to leave too after losing your goalie like that. That's really it on Kyle Connor. I mean, that would be my guess, is that he would be on the move after that happens. But you know, I'm really curious to see what Toronto still adds. You know, obviously they're going to pick Gavin McKenna. You know, I think they're going to draft that defenseman, that 7'1" guy I texted you about. They added Darren Raddysh. You know, we got to talk about him. Raddysh salad. You know, it's a crazy signing to me. I don't think it's a bad like acquisition. I just think the contract's a little crazy. I like the acquisition, hometown, right? That's all sweet and lovely and all that. I think the year term is crazy to me.
Yeah, Rick, it's a good point, fair point. You know, we talk about Raddysh off the top. Like first, they made that small trade with Philly where they traded Joseph Wall and Simone Benoit, and then they get back a pick. They get Sam Urson and Emil Andre. I don't know if they're going to keep the guy Urson. He was like the backup in Philly, but they got a little cap space from that trade and a pick. So then they go and they get Raddysh from Tampa, who was he was an expiring free agent anyway. So I guess Tampa kind of knew like, hey, you know, he's probably going to sign with Toronto anyway. So they get, you know, Toronto only gives up a 5th round pick, but Tampa gets a 5th. And the big thing with that trade really was that because he was property of Tampa Bay, it was a sign and trade. So now Raddysh got the extra year. So, you know, it was an 8-year contract instead of a 7. So it's a lot of money. It's a lot of term for a guy his age. He's 31 years old, I believe. He's really solid. He's got a bomb from the point. He could really shoot the puck. Really cool story too, because he didn't become like a pro until he was 28, 29 years old. So he kind of like came on the scene, like his best year, he was 31 years old. So he did have a couple good years with Tampa. So it wasn't a flash in the pan. It's not like he had 50 good games, and he has shown some promise for sure. I just wonder how much of this is a Kucherov effect, like playing with Nikita Kucherov on the power play and Point and Gensel and these guys that feeding him the puck, and you know, is he going to get that same thing in Toronto? Maybe. I mean, if he's playing with Matthews and Nylander, I'm sure he'll probably put up points.
In theory, you would think, right?
But at the end of the day, you know, I give Toronto credit. They took a little swing on him, and that's what they need to do to become a playoff team again. They needed a defenseman. They definitely needed a power play quarterback, which that's what they have in him now. So I think Toronto looks at it like, look, we got to try to get in the playoffs and be competitive again. It's a Toronto-born kid, Canadian kid that wants to play here. We're going to pay him, even if the last couple of years of that contract don't look good. That's 6-7 years from now. I don't think it's really going to become a problem. You know, the cap's going up, so I think it's a good signing. and it's better than, no offense to whoever was playing that right side power play for them last year, but I think it's an upgrade. So, solid signing for Toronto, and it goes in, like I said, they made the small move with Philly. They got a new coach, Jim Hiller. He used to coach the LA Kings. There was a whole coaching search from their GM, and apparently they interviewed like 50 candidates, and they landed on Hiller, which, some people liked, some people didn't. There was rumors Joe Pavelski was going to coach them, who's American, and he played for San Jose and Dallas, obviously an amazing player for many years. Guess he wants to get into coaching. Toronto, listen, they need to make the playoffs. They're not in a rebuilding stage. Correct me if I'm wrong, listeners, or Rick. I don't think they have that next year's first-round pick. I think, who has it? If you could look that up for me, Rick. That's one C. You said I would do my homework. I didn't do my homework on who has their 2027 first-round pick, but that was tied up in a trade with, I don't know if it was Boston or somebody else, but they don't have their first-round pick, and they also want to keep Austin Matthews if they can, and it's Toronto. Toronto is like the epicenter of hockey, so they're trying their best to like retool, not rebuild. So they want to make the playoffs. So they're, I'm kind of excited to see what happens to Toronto. I mean, you get a new coach, a new voice. He's experienced. He's not a new coach, but, maybe it's a fresh voice. And the Philadelphia Flyers, they own the 2027 pick. Okay. So that was from, what trade was that from, Rick? Do you know? Sorry, listeners. I'm curious. I knew somebody had the first round pick and it's not protected. So
now it goes back to Boston. Now as Puckpedia.
Oh, it was Philly's pick that Boston had. Okay. Well, anyway, yeah. So Toronto doesn't have their first pick, and they're not in a position to rebuild yet. So who knows? I mean, they still have a decent core. If they could add some pieces, I think they need to work on their back end a bit. But they had a new coach in Jim Hiller who does have experience. Okay. So they could. It's either 27 or 28. So they could pick which year. But okay, yes, it's a little bit of a convoluted trade, but
look it up, folks.
At the end of the day, like there's some protection. So next year they could move. They could forfeit it to 2028. But we'll see. That's why this year is important, because if they do make the playoffs and they have a good year, they'll
end that.
Yeah, Scott Lawton trade had something to do with it, but anyway, so if they have a good year, they're probably going to forfeit that pick this year because they'll be a playoff team and they'll hold on to their 2028 just in case. But so at the end of the day, Toronto, to wrap this up, they need to have a good year next year, and I do think Raddysh is a good improvement. They have some cap space. Let's see what they do with it. They have a new coach, new voice, hopefully a healthy Austin Matthews. So we'll see. John Chayka is a young GM. He's a progressive, analytical guy. Maybe he makes a couple shrewd moves and takes a page out of Kyle Dubas's book. No one thought Pittsburgh was going to be good last year either. So maybe Toronto's like the Pittsburgh Penguins of next year in a sense, right? So anything to add on Raddysh there, Rick?
Jack, no, what I do have to add is, though, that trade that we looked up was probably the most complicated trade in terms to ever exist, and that was due to them having the first overall pick now in the draft here this Friday. So, just folks, look it up on your own, do your own homework as we should, and yeah, it's definitely self-explanatory. Don't worry, guys. But I want to talk about Kesselring going to San Jose real quick. That was cool. A little sprinkle in trade. We got all the trades here. I think that's a good fit. Go over there, play with Celebrini, Will Smith. I mean, young D-man, right? Right shot, D-man, puck mover.
Yeah, for sure. Look, Kesselring's a right-handed shot, steady defenseman, has some size on him, could play a little physical. Good first pass type of guy. He was a numbers game in Buffalo. Buffalo's blue line was loaded, so he didn't really crack the lineup as much as maybe they thought that he would. So he came over in the JJ Peterka trade. So the Peterka for Doan Kesselring, that was the trade, Buffalo to Utah. So Buffalo to me is looking like they won that trade because you get Josh Doan, and then they have you get Kesselring. to San Jose and the pick. So it was Kesselring and Buffalo's pick, which was number 27, for San Jose's 20th pick. So basically, you traded Kesselring and you moved up 7 spots in the draft. The draft is in Buffalo, so maybe Buffalo has a guy in mind they want to draft. But we'll see what happens. I didn't watch Kesselring last year, to be honest, so I don't know too much about his game. But Buffalo, they had so many defensemen that were playing well, like he didn't really get a chance to play much. So, yeah, Buffalo moves up 7 spots, and San Jose gets a defenseman who they need because they're loaded on forwards, but they don't have a lot of defensemen, so they definitely need a defenseman, and he's going to probably get a good chance to play a lot in San Jose.
Yeah, he's definitely going to run up the minutes there in San Jose, Jack. I think he's going to enjoy his time over there. I haven't been on the West Coast, but I'm sure it's nice over there. You know, sunny weather and all that, and playing with a good young team there. Yeah, they got something cooking there. You know, Mike Greer is cooking something up there. Well, not up there, over there. You know, all over there. He's taking over. He's taking over there. I see it. It's going to be nice over there in the Shark Tank. Celebrini is a stud. I can't wait to see who they draft. They got the 2nd overall pick. I would think you would think it's Stenberg, but maybe they got their eyes on someone else. Who knows? The draft we got this Friday.
Yeah,
we'll be doing a little post draft pod. You know, that'll be talked about, folks. I want to talk about the Ross Colton trade, right?
Yeah, well said, Rick. And just to wrap it, like we said, San Jose needed a defenseman. It was a good deal. Rick, to transition us into Colton here. What's interesting about the Colton trade, I like Ross the Boss Colton. I picked him up. He won me a fantasy week one week, actually, and that's why I'm kind of loyal to him. But he was in Tampa Bay. He won a cup with Tampa Bay. They couldn't afford to pay him. They traded him to Colorado for picks. Spends a couple years with Colorado, and then Colorado was so loaded at center last year, other forwards, that he didn't get to play a ton. So he was a numbers game too. We spoke on a couple podcasts ago about Chris McFarland, the ex-GM in Colorado, how he's moved on to Nashville, and now he's the hockey executive in Nashville. He's familiar with Ross Colton. That's one of the first trades he makes. He calls his old buddy Joe Sakic. He gives up a 3rd-round pick and I think like a minor league goalie swap. But then they get Colton, and now, Nashville is an interesting team to me. We already know what Colorado is. They're Colorado. They have their core there, but Nashville's interesting because you have some good veterans. Are Stamkos, O'Reilly, all these guys, Marsh Desault going to have the same seasons they had last year? Or are they going to regress? You have some, you got Philip Forsberg, Yossi. A lot of those guys some of them they're on their way out of their prime in a sense, but they're still good. They're still good veterans. So you see Saros, I could see Nashville making the playoffs, or I could see them just missing. They're an interesting team, but like you add a guy like Colton, if they add around the perimeter a little bit, and maybe get a little scoring punch on the wing, like I could see them being a playoff team, maybe squeezing into that 3rd spot behind Minnesota and Colorado. But yeah, listen, that was a trade of familiarity with Colorado and Nashville because obviously Colorado's GM's very Nashville's current GM is very familiar with Ross Colton. So, Rick, you have anything else to add? We covered Sam Miskevich trade. We covered Darren Raddysh trade. The small trade between Philly and Toronto for the goalie swap. We'll see what happens if Toronto stays with Urson or if they roll with Stolars and Akhtamov. Just a brief side note: Toronto Marlies did win the Calder Cup in the AHL, and I'm forgetting his first name, but their goalie, the Russian goalie Akhtamov, seems like he's like a really good goalie. He played well in the AHL, obviously. So I don't know if that's going to translate, but yeah, congrats to the Marlies. They won, so that's a good sign for Toronto. If your minor league's winning, that means you got some decent young players down there and some veterans. Guy like Vinny Lettieri, ex-Ranger. He want to help them win, so that was cool to see. And yeah, Rick, I mean, do you want to transition? One thing I'll add, so I'll transition us into this. Vinny Trocheck, he changed agents. I forgot who his previous agent was, but he did change to Pat Brisson, who's like the power agent in the NHL. He has a lot of big clients. very successful agent. I don't know. My Rangers, I mean, we'll probably get into a deeper conversation post-draft and free agency and stuff about like our team reviews and where they're headed. But when I look at the Rangers, it's like I don't know where they're going, but like if they're trying to make the playoffs, I don't know why you trade Trocheck. He's on a good contract. He's very versatile. He could do a lot of things, kill penalties, score goals, plays in the tough areas, good face-off guy. If you are trying to get back into a competing spot, why you would trade him for futures doesn't make sense to me. This was Drury's idea to trade him too. It's not like Trocheck wanted to leave. This was more of like they came to him like, we want to trade you, and now he's changing agents probably because he wants to direct kind of where he goes. I doubt if any Trocheck wants to go to, I don't know. Maybe he doesn't want to go to LA. Maybe he only wants to go to Minnesota or Florida or something like that. But it's tough for me to find a fit for him. I think he'd actually fit in pretty well at Minnesota if Minnesota has the assets for it. We've been hearing about that for a while. But he changes agents, and we're going to see where they go. I mean, the Rangers have some good young players, but they have like some aging players, core players like Zibanejad long term, and JT Miller and Adam Fox, and you got Shesterkin, who's one of the best goalies in the NHL without a doubt, but he's 30, 31. So these guys, they're kind of in their prime or on their way out of their prime. So I don't know what the Rangers are doing, what their plan is, but if they are trading Trocheck, I'm sure Pat Brisson is going to help make that, facilitate that. Just a matter of where he goes, which I'm not too sure of. It's tough to gauge where he's going to go. I'm sure he'd love to go to Florida or something like that, or Minnesota's the fit. They need a center. I'm trying to think. Maybe even Boston. Boston wouldn't be a bad fit. You got any ideas for Trocheck there, Rick?
Maybe he goes to Detroit. Maybe he goes to Dallas. Maybe he goes to Minnesota. I like the Minnesota. I think that's a great fit. If Minnesota doesn't land Larkin, Trocheck goes there. Rangers are in a weird spot. I was saying it before we even started this podcast. Not to dive off of Trocheck and take the heat off him right now. Not that he's in the hot seat or anything, but I think the Rangers are in such a weird spot that it reminds me of that little rebuild they did. What was it, like maybe 4 years ago now? When they sent that letter out? Was that a different time? When they first time. Okay, McDonough, yeah.
6 years ago.
So 6 years ago now, yeah. So, it's I feel like another letter's going to be sent out. Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's like on paper, you look at them and you see the name. Like I just looked at Daily Face. I'm like, besides like Lafreniere and Adam Fox and Shesterkin and Zibanejad, he's getting up there. They got rid of Panarin. It's like it's weird. It's like a weird team. It's not like what you're used to seeing, and it's just like what happened in this team. It won once President Trophy winners, and I swear by that trophy, it's cursed, man. But I don't know. They're just in a weird spot. I feel like they're not doing that full rebuild thing, but they're gonna do that little quick rebuild. As far as Trocheck goes, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I feel like that's Rick doesn't know shit apparently, but no. I can see it. Like if Larkin leaves, I can see him filling in at a cheaper rate. For Detroit. Yeah. Does he want to go there? Yeah, I don't know. No move clause, I'm sure, and all this crap, all the terms. But I don't know. They'll figure it out with Trocheck. I think he's gonna have to open up to, something. So.
Yeah, well said, Rick. I actually don't mind that Dallas fit. That's a good team to bring up. I think Boston could use a center, and they do have like a decent core there. I could see him playing with Pasternak. I'm sure he's Charlie McAvoy has won a cup with. Won a gold medal with him, and Jeremy Swayman's still a good goalie. Like Boston's one of those teams where if they could add a few pieces, they could be a little dangerous. And you know what? I hate to be all over the place, but these things just come to me as I'm talking here. You bring up the Rangers, and we are going to talk more about them and their odd situation and what they can and can't do. But here's two things. I'll stick with the Rangers for now because it came to my mind. You brought up the Rangers, Alexis Lafreniere. So I've heard a few rumors about the Rangers maybe potentially moving on from him. Could he be a fit in Ottawa? That's a Canadian kid that he's got skill. He's not small. He doesn't play like Tkachuk, but he's got talent and potential. He's signed for a few years, at least 4 or 5 years, at like a good number. I think $7.25 million. Could they send him to Ottawa? Maybe Ottawa sends us a pick and something else. I mean, I'd rather keep Lafreniere. I'm just thinking as a fit standpoint for Ottawa. I mean, that's a player that would probably not mind playing in Ottawa. So that's one thing to think about. And, Rick, bringing up Boston, Ottawa, it makes me think about these Atlantic Division teams and how, like, Florida missed the playoffs last year because they had so many injuries, and the Stanley Cup hangover they talk about, which I think could be a real thing.
Especially winning twice in a row.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, what I think about Florida's getting in the playoffs next year. I mean, that's what are the odds on that? I mean,
they all stay healthy.
Yeah, Brady Tkachuk. You add Tkachuk if they get a goal. If they either re-sign Bobrovsky or get a goalie. My thing is, who's out of the playoffs now? Is it Ottawa? Because if Florida's back in, someone's out. I mean, you could make I think Ottawa. I mean, if Buffalo doesn't re-sign Tuck and they trade Byram and they don't have as good year, maybe Boston, Buffalo, maybe. I don't think Montreal's out. I think Florida's in. Tampa's not out. Toronto wants to get back in. That Atlantic Division is going to be interesting.
Penguins not in.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking. I guess I'm looking at the Atlantic. Penguins are in Metro, but it does tie in like with the wild card spots. Yeah, but the Atlantic's going to be. It's going to be a tough division. And how's Detroit going to get in? You're trading Larkin, didn't even make it in last year. That's not the pick on Detroit.
And we talked about it last podcast. They want to get better. They're not just going to do a 1-for-1 with Larkin.
Right, and ideally, Steve Yzerman and the Red Wing fans want that, but do they get what they want? I don't know. Ottawa probably didn't get what they wanted for Tkachuk. They got a bunch of picks, but you don't think they wanted a player? You don't think they wanted Lundell and a bunch of picks?
And that's why we talked about last podcast too. Like you kept saying, future assets. It's going to be future assets. Now Tkachuk now we're going back to the Tkachuk, but like Tkachuk got traded for a bunch of picks. Yeah. So like, does this kind of say like, hey, Larkin, you're just going to get, hey, Yzerman, you're going to get just picks, bud. So pick wisely.
Yeah, it could be, Rick. And maybe Yzerman has to get creative and flip those picks for another player, whoever that may be. I mean, who knows? Maybe it is Trocheck. I don't know. If he doesn't have Detroit on his no trade list, maybe they do trade him there and Larkin goes somewhere else. And I don't know how happy Trocheck will be for that to happen. But I'm sure he'd rather play with Larkin than without him. But at the same time, I mean, I don't think Detroit's a terrible team. Like, they got Seider and they got Raymond. And then, if DeBrincat stays, that's another conversation for another day. But, that Atlantic Division is going to be extremely, I don't know the right term, but just it's going to be a difficult division, and there's not going to be much. There's no margin for error there. Like, if Toronto goes on a 10-game losing streak or something like that, it could be over. Same with Ottawa or Buffalo or something. So it's going to be interesting. We didn't even bring up Alex Tuch. He's going to probably head to free agency. I don't know what's going on there unless they last-minute sign him. You would think he's, I don't know. Maybe they're just not offering him even close to what he wants. I mean, he is from the area. I'm sure he would prefer to stay there, but I don't know him. Who knows what's going on with that? But
I think he goes to Vegas.
He could go back to Vegas, maybe if they have the cap space. But yeah, I don't know if it's about money for him or fit. I don't know. You would think Buffalo's a good fit, but he didn't have a good playoffs, so that's tough. But yeah, the Atlantic Division is going to be just, there's so many question marks still that are unanswered, and Florida's coming back in with a vengeance. I mean, they were already going to get back in the playoffs again with a healthy Tkachuk, healthy Barkov. Now you add Brady Tkachuk. They still need to figure out goaltending. But like I said, I mean, Toronto's making some moves. If Matthews stays and he's healthy and they make some smart changes, I could see them squeezing in, and maybe Ottawa's out, and maybe Buffalo's out. I don't know. I like Buffalo. I hope they stay in. But like I said, you lose Tuch, and if you don't have that same magic with the goalies again, that they could be squeezed out. Boston, iffy. I don't know. That's why I'm talking about. Boston needs a centerman. Like, they have a pretty good blue line. Swayman's a good goalie. Pasternak's unbelievable. They definitely need another centerman. Maybe Trocheck goes there. Would Larkin accept the trade there? I don't know. I'm sure Detroit probably doesn't want to trade him to Boston, But I don't know. It's the Larkin thing for me is very interesting, where he goes, what team, what they get for him, what Detroit does. Because Detroit, I mean, I don't think Steve Yzerman's getting much sleep at night. I imagine Steve Yzerman's drinking a scotch and having a few. Yeah, he's taking some Advil and some scotch just to get to sleep. He's waking up with a headache because that's a stressful situation he's in, But at the end of the day, Rick, I think What we do want to jump into is the news with Babcock, which we did touch on last pod. He was cleared by the NHLPA. The investigation did conclude that he is able to coach, and essentially, I read the report from the NHLPA. I can't recite every single word, but they were essentially saying what he did was distasteful, but it wasn't illegal, and they couldn't stop him from being employed by the NHL. If an NHL club wanted to employ him, which the Edmonton Oilers do, apparently Edmonton Oilers did their research and their homework on Babcock. Maybe he's a changed man. I don't know. There was several people. Mike Commodore, if you know him, he didn't like him, butted heads, thought he was very disrespectful. Mike Modano played 1,499 games. Babcock scratched him and didn't let him get to the 1,500th game. It was like a jab to him. Johan Franzen, that used to play for the Detroit Red Wings fans, if you're listening, yeah, like apparently he really like fucked with his head. I don't know all the details, but just was a prick. Apparently Toronto, he was a prick to Marner. The Columbus situation, let me see the pictures in your phone, that whole weird thing. So there was a lot going on. It wasn't one thing. It's not like this guy fucked up once and everyone's just not giving him a second shot. He made a mistake. I think, there's rumors he didn't treat the staff right at some places he worked at, like the arena staff. I don't know. I don't know the guy personally. I think X's and O's wise, coaching wise, hockey wise, the tangible hockey stuff he's good at and educated on, knows how to coach a team. But sometimes you need a good culture too, and it is about how you treat people. It is about how you get along with your players and your staff, and that all working synergistically with your coaching knowledge. Like, you can't just be an asshole and treat people like shit, but I'm good at coaching. That's not a recipe for success in most places. So I don't know. Like we spoke about before, if he does become the coach, I'm sure it was cleared by McDavid and Leon and Zach Hyman, all these like veteran leaders. There's no way the GM or ownership, it may not even be the GM, it could be ownership, just like, hey, we're going to do whatever we can to win. Maybe they think maybe he knows Babcock personally. I have no idea. But yeah, so I imagine there was better avenues to go down, but they went down this avenue. They were aggressive, and maybe they think it'll work out, and maybe it will. Maybe Babcock's a changed man. Maybe he really did some reflecting. But yeah, I guess we'll wait and see.
Yeah, Jack, I think, excuse me, I think if it doesn't work in Edmonton with Babcock, I think he could kiss Connor McDavid goodbye. I think that he will totally lose trust in management, and he has no other choice but to just move on. And, hey, we talked about it earlier, like, sometimes things just don't work out, He did his time in Edmonton, right, you could say. I just think that's only if, obviously, if it's a total disaster and it's just throwing the locker room chemistry off and all this stuff and it gets brutal in there, I think he's done. And why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he move on? Like we talked about, it had to have been better avenues to go, right? You would think. And especially him stepping out of the game for quite some time. Not that he doesn't know anything, of course. Obviously, he's done his time in the NHL and is quite the coach, prestigious as well. But I just think it's so weird that you would want to bring this drama into the locker room, and who knows? We don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe changed man, we don't know them personally, but just bringing it into the whole McDavid situation and stuff like that. If I was the man, I wouldn't want to be bothered, but it just because. But I respect the aggressive choice, though. I mean, you have McDavid, you want to win now. You've been so close, so I do I'm so 50-50 with it. I get it, but I don't. Me personally, I would stay away, but I respect it. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, it's one of those wait and see things, and we'll, they did their homework, I'm sure, but their goal is to win and keep McDavid. We've spoke about that before. I mean, he's the best player in the world. Leon, Connor, you want Connor to stay. He wants to win. Like, if you get bounced out again in the first round, I think he's out of there. Yeah, they're probably gonna trade him to the Florida Panthers. Yeah, no, I don't know, but I mean, look, he's a Canadian kid. He's so good. Obviously, you don't need my analysis on Connor McDavid. I mean, you just look up his highlights, but it'll be interesting. I mean, like I've said, I think this is a big year for Edmonton. Darnell Nurse is on his way out. That's one thing I think we briefly touched on last pod. Where he goes, not too sure, but they have some reworking to do. They need to really stabilize their goalie situation. I can't think of someone that maybe Jordan Binnington in St. Louis. I think he is Canadian. He played for Team Canada. Maybe he could go to Edmonton and stabilize them because he is a stable goaltender.
Wow, that's a good fit, Jack.
Yeah, so maybe that's something that could work out for them. See, we're not doing really Rick Jack's picks anymore because the season's over, but that would be Jack's pick right there. Does Jordan Binnington go to the Edmonton Oilers by the draft or by free agency? And Rick called it. I mean, I'm sorry, Jack called it.
Yeah,
Jack called it. I don't want to give Rick too much credit over here, but yeah, I see that as a fit when I think about it on the surface. About it, he's a Canadian goalie. St. Louis is not really in a winning situation. Maybe Nurse goes there. It depends. I don't know. Nurse probably has a no move, but I could see Binnington waving to go to Edmonton, and he's proven he can win before, and he's played in big moments. So that's kind of what Edmonton needs as out of a goaltender. I'm sure Connor's familiar with him from playing with him at the Olympics. So we'll see what happens there. That could be a good fit, and we'll see what happens with Babcock if that works out or not. But like I said, it's going to be no room for error with. For Edmonton, because then you're going to get McDavid at the end of next season asking for a trade, and they're going to have to trade him because otherwise he's going to leave for nothing. So
how do you know it doesn't come this trade deadline?
Yeah, so Edmonton, I could see it going chaotic, and Edmonton just things not going well, and maybe some injuries, and maybe they don't figure out their goaltending, and next thing you know, they're out of the playoffs. They're trading McDavid in March. Or I could see the other way around and Edmonton winning the cup because McDavid and Draisaitl are really that good. Bouchard's good. If they get a Binnington or another goalie that's stable, and Babcock is not, he's a real deal, and he's like getting along with people and doing the right thing, and they maybe add a defenseman. I could see it going either way. I could see Edmonton winning the cup. I could see Edmonton plummeting and just everything getting ruined. It could go either way. I don't think it's going to be mushy middle.
No, exactly that. It's spot on. Nailed it. Exactly that, Jack. I would love to finally see that happen in a storybook fashion, right? In a true like Disney movie fashion, right there. That would be a beautiful story. Happily ever after. Connor McDavid winning the Stanley Cup. That's going to be about it, folks. This pretty much wraps up this episode of the Puck House. Rick Adams here with Jack Farris. Don't forget it. We said it. We're bringing you some hockey news, folks. Just give us some feedback. We want to see some comments and likes and replies. We want to see some predictions. Don't be afraid to hop in the DMs. Leave us some comments on YouTube, whatever you got to do. And, Jack, what do you got to say?
You said it, Rick. I mean, Puck House listeners, thanks for listening. It was news-filled week. We were excited to do this pod, and we got the draft this weekend, so we're excited for that. And we're going to, I expect some big trades to happen. I was messing around with Rick. I was like, we're going to finish up this pod, start listening to it, and Dylan Larkin's going to get traded before we could even finish to listen to the pod again. But yeah, I expect a lot of news this week. I see some more trades happening before and during the draft, and obviously, we didn't touch a lot on the draft itself and the players, but we are going to get into that a little more. And I mean, San Jose, another, like we spoke about that already. Like, what are they going to do? I mean, they're in a good spot. But like one thing, another like bold move here, bold pick before we wrap up the show, Rick. Could you see San Jose moving that pick and getting like a player, like a real good player, like a good defenseman or something? No offense to Darnell Nurse. I'm not talking about Darnell Nurse. I'm talking about like a, star. Or we'll see. But they definitely need defensemen. So, but yeah, what a show, Rick. And Puck House listeners, thanks again for listening. And, hit that like button for us. It helps us out. And we'll be back at you after the draft. And probably plenty of crazy stuff to talk about.
Rick's prediction real quick before we end it. I said it before. Larkin gets traded at the draft. Look out for it, folks. The Puck House is out.